Welcome back to Brandon K Show. I'm the host of this awesome new show we just started. This is a real show, and I'm here with my co-host Rodger,
Hey,
and I want to thank especially Solomon behind the camera. He's the one who makes this all possible. He has got this great spot in Long Beach that I could realize my dream of making this podcast. And I'm pretty overwhelmed because it's finally here. I'm right in front of the camera. But we got a topic today of addiction and acceptance. And the reason I picked this topic was because of how long it's taken me to go from this dream of having a show, my own show. In 2011, I got my YouTube channel all this time. You can go watch my old clips on there of me in my addiction, trying to fight through my anxiety with alcohol and drugs, and how that prevented me from really living in the dream. But now we're here, where I've been sober 7 years.
congratulations.
I know, 7 years, and even then, it wasn't like, oh, let's go right into a podcast. It's like, let's fight through the demons. Like I said, I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. I'm addicted to everything. You know that about me, Rodger.
Yes.
It's women, it's booze, it's caffeine, it's nicotine. I'm nicotine and caffeine free for like 4 years. I'm stopped gambling a couple weeks ago, hoping to stay off the gambling train.
Until the next time.
You know how it is. Maybe we'll get to it in when we talk more about addiction. But we replace one addiction with the next one, with the next one, with the next one. So I quit alcohol and I picked up the next thing and the next thing, whatever works. And so if I go into my story, we're talking even at 3 years old. I did the cough medicine. I'm sorry, I'm trying to tell this story that I had in my brain. My parents told me that even when I was a kid, I liked that taste of that grape cough syrup, and they had to get my stomach pumped because I went and chased it out. And I know you had a similar story to starting drugs early, not gasoline early.
Gasoline, also cough medicine, or anything that made me feel funny or made me feel different.
And when we're kids, we just want to spin around in circles, right?
Yeah,
Just for that, just for that effect. But yeah, for me, it was cough medicine, and then I didn't start drinking till I was in my teens. But even I puked my first couple times around with the booze, and by the time I was 17, I had a kegger at my mom's house and got thrown into juvenile hall. So
Wow.
that's kind of where my addiction with alcohol started, and it just kept going. I moved down here to Orange County right away, and I was down here, didn't have a lot of access to alcohol, but I would go out to the weekends out in Hemet and get drunk with my friends. And one weekend, well, I got into weed all throughout since I was 16 till 20. But when I was 20, I had this psychotic experience of this hallucination of believing that the world is all in my head. And, that ties into the Brandon K show too, of just like, I remember having this theme song. Like I was high, and my friends are like playing the Brandon K show theme song. And I'm like, shit, like it's all about me. It's all in my head.
Did it have a actual melody to it?
In that moment, yeah. I mean, he was playing a real song, and I was just imagining it was about me. You know how we do when we're high and drunk.
Ah, okay.
But the point is that when I had that delusion stuck with me for 11 years, and I fought through it with more alcoholism, and Xanax addiction. But that led to, even by the time I was 23, I had this breakup with a girl and went to this therapist and made this big list of all these problems I had in life. I'm angry, I'm depressed, I can't get my life together, I dropped out of school, I can't keep a job. At the bottom of the list was I use alcohol to deal with my problems. And my therapist was in recovery and and said, you're probably an alcoholic. You should get some help. So I went to get help in 12-step programs, stayed sober for 3 years, but I still struggle with all that delusion. I wasn't able to get out of my head. I wasn't able to believe that the world, that there was something higher than myself. So then we get into that higher power stuff. And so I relapsed at 27, started drinking, and then I used the alcohol and the Xanax to fuel this creativity because I was so locked in. I wanted to make music. I wanted to be creative and make videos, but I was so locked in my head, I couldn't even do it without alcohol and Xanax. So that's when you get to the Brandon K show on YouTube in 2012. I made a goal to make videos every day in March 2012. But it was all fueled by Adderall and Xanax, caffeine, and alcohol. And so those videos, I'm all drunk and high. And it was in this cycle of you need the Xanax, and then you're kind of down, and then you need the caffeine to go up, and then you need the booze to go down. So, you need the booze to go down, and then then the Adderall to go back up again. It was just, you need all that just to be a normal human. And I'm just grateful to say that right now in this moment, I'm able to be here sober, speaking my truth, speaking my authentic truth, having learned how to stay sober, having learned what that's about, having learned how to give over control, to not think that I'm in control over everything, to not have to be in control of everything. That's generally the story. I invited Rodger here today. He's from Oklahoma. He came here to get clean and sober. And the joy of getting clean and sober has been helping others through the process of getting clean and sober. And that's what I want to do here on this show today. And I want to hear Rodger's story.
Thank you, Brandon. My story, as Brandon alluded to earlier, since the earliest as I can remember, I wanted to feel different. I wanted to feel that head rush, and whether it was a young age of playing in the backyard. I was a latchkey kid, so my parents worked a lot, and babysitters don't babysit, but sometimes they just let me play in the backyard, and I really liked the way the smelling gasoline made me feel. And so that was the earliest I can remember dealing with this, feeling differently. And, when I take medicine for coughs, or, when I wasn't feeling real well, I'd always fight sleep, but NyQuil or other cough medicines, I like the way it just made me feel.
Let's talk about that for a second. Because like I said, I was sober in my 20s. That's where I relapsed too, was on the cough medicine. Because it's kind of like you don't think it's anything, but then you get that effect of the codeine, whatever's in there. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh, alcohol's better for my system, right back into my alcoholism,
Yeah, I mean, just the feeling different, that warm feeling, that sense of relaxation, but yet the warmth. Just the feeling differently. And I don't know why. It wasn't like I was abused. I wasn't, I had everything a kid could want. I had parents that loved me. I had no complaints, but I like to feel different. As a child, they don't tell you, you hear, growing up, I didn't hear about addiction. Things like that they were quiet. They were behind closed doors. A man did drink. A man did do things. But you didn't hear about it. It wasn't something that was publicized. We didn't have social media. It wasn't like everybody knew everybody's business. And so the dark secrets of addiction and abuse and things like that were always kept under wraps. So I wasn't exposed to addiction. My parents weren't addicts. They didn't use. I grew up in the church. I had very devout grandparents. I had very devout aunts and uncles. I had two great aunts that are nuns, and I had on one side of my family, and then on the other side of the family, currently I have 3 second cousins that are pastors of churches. So, I knew God at an early age, but I also like that feeling. Fast forward junior high, I had a friend, still my friend today. His mom was a single mom. She worked overnights, and we would just go over there, and he could do whatever he wanted. We would drink beer and just roam the streets, and it was a freedom. Parents were reluctant to let you go over to Jeff's house because they knew that it was unsupervised, that you were going to do whatever you wanted. And since then, Jeff, he grew up into a great adult. He served our country and is married to a great woman, and they both support me and encourage me in my recovery. Drinking, fighting. I get in high school, start driving, and I'm a jock. I'm honor student. I'm at a suburb of Tulsa, Oklahoma, a place called Catoosa. And, it's a small population. Everybody knows everybody. My dad was a city councilman. My uncle was mayor. And you couldn't get away with anything in that place. Everybody knew everybody's secrets. But you could do whatever you wanted, If you got in trouble with the law would just take you home. And it was safe in that way. But also, you didn't learn responsibility for your actions because things were covered up or things were, slid under the lost in paper. There wasn't no severe consequences except for my dad beating me. But other than that, that was it. So I started using drugs. Started with cocaine. I really liked the way it made me feel. I did it one time. And then when I tried to get more cocaine, you don't know a drug dealer, so to say, at the age of 16. But, other people are doing it. And you just seek it out. I continue to seek it out. And I found methamphetamine was a lot easier to get hold of. So I started using meth, and I just really liked the way it made me feel. It made me feel superhuman. I could read nonstop. I could get better grades. I could write better papers. I could play better football.
Now that's the question. Did you think you could do it? Did you think that you could do it better, or could you really do it better?
At the time, my addiction was early. It was early in the addiction, and I was able to do those things. It had me hooked, but it didn't have me where I had to have it every day.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't gained a, dependency on it yet. It was cool. It was quiet. It was on the weekends. And yeah, I really could do things better. I was 16, 17 years old. I was invincible. I felt like on top of the world when I used meth.
Yeah, what we say sometimes is we at first we used it for fun, then we used it to function, just to function and get through the day. And then eventually we're just drinking and drugging for oblivion to get out of our heads, to get out of the mess we created.
And that's where it ended up. By the time I was a senior in high school, the last semester, I was looking to go to college, and I just quit going to school. And then when I did go back to school after being gone for like 3 or 4 days, it was such a small town, and they wanted you to succeed so bad that the vice principal, when I went back and reported to him, his response was to give me some more free days to go check out colleges. So, I wasn't held accountable. I was, people just really protected me, and, no fault to them. And it just eventually, by the time it was time to go to college, I was in full-blown addiction. I was in dependency. I needed that drug even to make the drive to North Dakota where I ended up going to school. I'd been up for 3 days and needed more drugs just to make the drive up there. My parents didn't know about it. They just thought I was drinking. And that college trip was short-lived. It was about first one semester, and I was ready to come back home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's well, when you're talking like when your family wasn't acknowledging your addiction, it's kind of like they didn't let you hit bottom. It's like they were letting it happen
Yeah,
or preventing you from having consequences in a way until the drugs themselves gave you consequences.
and that's the thing, my parents were probably in denial. I was an intelligent kid. I was very responsible growing up. And, I think that was a lot of it. They didn't want to look at the fact that I may have had a drug addiction, that my alcoholism was out of control. So I come back home within 3 or 4 months. I'm really strung out and I'm robbing drug dealers and I'm not coming home. And then Easter comes and I finally go home and one of my friends from high school shows up and wakes me up and asks me what's going on. And I explained to him I'm strung out. We had gotten high in high school, but he ended up going to college and, stuck with it. So he said, hey, come live with me. So I had to go tell my parents, all right, here's the deal. I'm strung out on drugs. It's not just alcohol. I'm using meth and I need help. I'm going with him to Pittsburgh, Kansas and trying to get clean. And they supported that. I loaded up, followed him to his house, hour and a half, 2 hours away. And for about 6 months, I was clean. I was sort of clean. I was drinking alcohol, smoking marijuana, but I wasn't using meth. And then addiction, just the obsession that I still wanted to get high. I still felt like there was, I liked that feeling, even though it put me in a really bad place, where people were looking for me for stealing from them. I still like the way that meth made me feel.
We put it above everything, right?
It was above everything. Yeah. So I come back to Tulsa and I would pick up drugs and I would drive back to Pittsburgh, Kansas, sell it, and then to pay for my habit. And that was all right for a month or two. And then my roommate found out, people started coming over to the house wanting some more of that stuff, and he didn't know about, I was selling again or using again. And when he found out, he was just like floored because he didn't want to have anything to do with it. So there went a friendship right there. Ended up moving back to Tulsa. Got really deep into it. And I struggled with it for the next couple years. I would leave out of town for a couple months. I think I went and lived in Wisconsin. Then I went and traveled across Wisconsin and Minnesota and Michigan working. And that ended up where alcohol got the better of me. And I ended up getting into a fight with somebody I worked with, drunk one night. And fight ends up getting broke up by a Secret Service agent in Valparaiso, Indiana. And I go to jail. It's the first time I go to jail. Yeah, exactly. Who thinks the Secret Service is going to break up a fist fight in a hotel parking lot? But yeah, that was my first stint in jail. My dad come up 10 days later after I got out of jail, made the front page of the newspaper in Valparaiso, Indiana. And that started my criminal career pretty much. Next 6 months, I ended up getting into another fist fight. And that turns into a burglary one. I got into a fight with one guy and then several of us.
After your first jail sentence?
Yeah, after my first jail sentence.
How long was the first one?
10 days.
10 days. Okay, gotcha.
So this one, I'm back in Catoosa. I'm drinking. Mm-hmm. And somebody had been calling and harassing my girlfriend. She ends up being my wife later on. But so I go over to where they live. And I get into a fight with one guy, and then 2 or 3 guys jump on me at the time. Somebody calls my little brother. He lived down the street, and he shows up. And they'd already went back to the trailer they were staying in. And we go over there, knock on the door, and they open the door, and we just barge in. Baseball bat, and they call the cops. So I end up with a burglary one and an assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. And that was the law. I broke the law there.
How long was that sentence?
That was a 3-year suspended sentence. Within that, my wife ends up leaving me after 6 months into that. I'm strung out. out of control. I started manufacturing methamphetamine. I quit living with my parents. And, within 6 months of start manufacturing, I'm in this underworld with murders and robbers and thieves. And I'm 23 years old and I'm running with these career criminals that I have not a clue what I'm doing. I don't even realize that I'm running around with people who killed cops and that are being looked for killing cops. And I'm just thinking I'm cool. And
I didn't realize we were only at 23. You're only 23 still.
23, man.
Yep.
So that started, I ended up going to prison over that. And then
How long was that? That was the 3 years?
that was a 3-year sentence in.
Yeah.
Get out. Within 3 months, my dad dies, passes away. And then 2 weeks after that, I'm back in jail. Go back to prison for another 6 years, 5 years, 7 months, 2 days. And during that time, my mother passes away. And I get out after almost 6 years, and I don't know anybody. It's almost 10 years total.
And so you missed both funerals, huh?
Yeah, I got to go to my dad's.
Okay.
But then shortly after, I was right back in jail. And that was part of it. I was just, as soon as my dad died, I didn't really care. I was getting high. I wasn't accepting it. I didn't want to come to terms with my father's death. My father was my hero. Anytime I had any problems, that Superman in my life, that Superman in a lot of people's lives. My dad was a really great guy. So, I get out of prison after almost 10 years and I don't have anybody. I don't have no friends. I don't have people I went to high school with that don't even remember me. It's a lot of time. I do have an uncle, that looked after me while I was in prison and took care of my, inheritance stuff and really become a friend of me. And he's still a friend today. And he really has been encouraging and supporting. I'm out for about 8 months after that 6-month stint, and I go back to prison again. Started with alcohol, just a beer here, a beer there. And I thought I had it under control.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, I'm getting high. Drank a little too much, hanging out with the wrong people. Next thing you know, I'm getting high. And go back to prison. I get out of prison again and get an awesome job selling cars. And everything's going well for me in life, but I don't have a support system. I'm not working any kind of program. I'm not doing anything for my sobriety. I'm just making a lot of money. And I got to the point where I got complacent. One Saturday, I'm just sitting there and I decided I want to get high, and start drinking a little bit here and there. I get high and then it was on again. Within 6 months, I was back in jail. And
now, were these like parole violations or?
Yeah, some of them parole violations. Some of them were new charges. I probably got 20 felonies on my record at least. And it was just like I have that, once it starts, I'm not stopping until you make me stop attitude. And that's been the downfall of me. So I got sober, went to jail, got out, and got sober for about 3 years. Fast forward, COVID hits. Right about the COVID, I get laid off, and then I started using again. I don't have a support system, not working a program, and sober almost 3 years, and I started using again. And then right through COVID, after COVID, all the way up until September last year, 2022. I go to jail in September. I get out of jail April 30th of 2023. I start using again that day. About 2 weeks into it, I'd had enough. So quit using drugs, just drinking alcohol. And I'm having issues with my ex. I really was thinking that we were going to have something when I got out of jail. And unbeknownst to me, her agenda had changed and she started getting high. And I was just... I didn't have that spot in her life anymore. And an obsession began where I felt like I'm doing everything I promised I'd do. I was still drinking alcohol, but I was going to work every day. And I told her, I get out, I can make good money. I can go to work every day. I can be that man you desire.
Right.
And when I started to become that man that I thought she desired, she didn't want to have anything to do with me. And it was very hard to accept that. Very hard to accept that I wasn't wanted anymore. And I hadn't done anything for her to feel that way, except for, the 2 years I was just totally trashy to her.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided, now I relapsed after 45 days of not using meth. I relapsed. I had a job. I had a truck. My life had 45 days, I'd cleaned up my life. A friend of mine, Brandy, had helped me, let me stay on her couch. And I just rebuilt my life that quick. And then I decided to just throw it away. So I relapsed, and about 2 weeks into that relapse, I called a friend. I had been talking to a friend out here in California. She'd went through a sauna recovery. And it saved her life. And she had sent me the information to contact a guy named Jim Bell. And he forwarded me to a woman named Sabrina. And these people saved my life.
Mm-hmm.
They walked me through the steps to get out here to Orange County.
Mm-hmm.
They got a program in Costa Mesa that is one of the best programs around in Orange County. There's a lot of treatment places, but these people got me the insurance, told me how to sign up for insurance, got me on the plane, stayed on me all the way to the point where I got on the plane. They're like, did all this. I get out here to Orange County, and I'm sitting there day 2, and I realize that I can either enjoy this as a vacation out here in Orange County,
Mm-hmm.
or I can get my stuff together.
That's right. That's when I met you. Was this guy was ready to get busy, ready to do whatever it takes to get sober. And you can see why I brought him here to talk about acceptance. We talked about the cycle, about how many times it just led right back to jail. We talked about how you're the best example I know of someone who's learned to accept accept the past, accept your addiction and alcoholism, accept, the death of your family, and talk a little more about acceptance.
The thing is, if I'm left to my own devices, I'm a piece of crap.
Same.
I'm not like, if you just let me do me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
I may put up a front for a little while, and but if I'm left alone,
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm going to start feeling sorry for Rodger.
Mm-hmm.
And Rodger's going to start making excuses for Rodger's behavior by using drugs.
Right.
I can be a piece of crap because I'm high.
As a justification for our behavior. And, all of us addicts and alcoholics do the same thing of we're in the cycle, and the cycle is we use the drugs and the alcohol so that we can do more bad stuff and then justify it and do it more and more. And this is the cycle. This is an example of the cycle, right?
Yeah. So
Part of it. It's also a progressive. It also gets worse and worse.
And that's it. A lot of it is I was dealing with mental illness. I have been for years, and I just don't. I never wanted to come to terms with it. Nobody wants to think, hey, maybe I got something wrong with my mind.
We're also self-medicating.
And I'm self-medicating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm controlling it with alcohol and methamphetamine.
For me, Xanax and booze. Those ones are the ones that make me feel like a normal human being without that anxiety and without the feeling like a different person. Like I feel normal when I'm on that stuff, but that's what drugs and alcohol do. But then they obviously have their consequences.
Yeah, the consequences is I'm trying to use a shotgun effect with meth and alcohol, mm-hmm. where they got specific pills now that target my bipolar, the ups and the downs that I suffer.
Right. And
as
as you're talking about that, you probably never considered that could be your solution. Medication could be your solution, or a program could be your solution. You just were looking at that booze as the
solution. So
at the beginning.
The way I grew up, I grew up around tough people, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like my dad was tough, mm-hmm. Shot, stabbed, whatever whatever you could think of. He was a tough man.
Mm.
And my uncles were the same thing, big tough men. They're both 6'3", 300 pounds. They were big men, and all my uncles and cousins, and I'm the smallest one in my family, and at 5'10", rest of them over 6 feet, women's included. So And that part of that is people were just tough. If you had something wrong with you, you just sucked it up. You know, my mom had a stroke. She had a double mastectomy, or had a mastectomy for breast cancer. And you know what? That woman hardly missed a day of work through all that.
Yeah.
Because that was just what it was. You sucked it up and you just do the next thing. You do continue to do it. And so mental illness and treating it, and my alcoholism and treating it were not even on the table.
And there's a denial of it. If it ever comes up, oh, maybe I should do something about my anxiety or my depression. It's like denied to it.
Denied, you know, there's
Like, oh, I'm going to use alcohol to just cover it up.
Yeah.
That's what real men do.
Or just suck it up and
Yeah.
just go, you know, everybody has bad days, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I realize my bad days, no matter if I'm clean or sober, are sometimes extreme.
Right. Well, when we're talking about the topic of acceptance, it's like I've also had to accept my mental illness, my addiction, my alcoholism, life on life's terms, everything that comes at me, relationships, family, friends, jobs, everything. Accepting all that helps me not have to do drugs and alcohol, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this go around, here's what's different. I have decided to take everybody's suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
When I got into that rehab, it's on the recovery in Costa Mesa. There was a guy named Bobby Campbell, and he looked like a guy who had been through what I've been through. He's got the same tattoos. He talked about being in prison 6 times. And he was working a program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he would say some really catchy things, you know, like, my current circumstances are a direct result of my past decisions.
That's a good one.
Boom, accepting exactly where I'm at now is because of things I didn't choose, choices I made in the past.
I like the word responsibility. So that's accepting responsibility
Yeah.
for our actions and our past actions.
Yeah, and that was
So that we can do something about them. Now we can do something about them because we said, this is what I'm dealing with, and now I'm going to do something about it. That's what acceptance
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Accepting reality.
Yeah, acceptance, acknowledging your reality, and not and deciding if there's anything you can do to change it. And if there's not, and you can't control it, then move on with it. That's the whole serenity prayer, you know. God grant me the serenity, grant me the peace to
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot
cannot
change.
change.
The courage to change the things I can, which generally is myself. I can change myself. I can choose what I put in my body. I can control my vices to the best of my ability. Vices are tough, you know. They're going to come back. They're going to creep back up. But I can't control other people. I've learned I cannot control other people. I've learned
you can't.
I can't control other people. That was a delusion I had at different points in my life, was like, oh, if they just did this, everything would be great. And, you know, obviously we learn to accept what is, and then the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah, and that's the hardest thing, is the wisdom. You know, Solomon, the wisest man in the world, that's what he prayed for. You know, there he is. Hey, Solomon.
What a coincidence.
Hey, crazy. And that was the deal. He wanted wisdom above anything else. He could have all the riches in the world, and he wanted wisdom. You know, so I read Proverbs every day, just for that. You know, that's the big deal in Proverbs. That's the key point. That's is wisdom. You know, and if you have the wisdom, life's your oyster. If you know the difference between what you control and what you can't control,
Yeah.
if you just have that,
Yeah.
life's so much easier.
The wisdom I've learned is, like I said, I can't control people. I can only try to put my message out there, try to share my experience, which is what we're doing today. Try to plant the seeds of what I've learned to others, but I can't make anybody believe what I believe, and I don't have to.
Yeah, that's one thing I do know about recovery, is you can't love somebody to get sober. You can't love somebody enough to make them get sober. You can't make somebody willing, and you can't give somebody determination. Those are things of the heart, and that has to be inside somebody. And you may be able to say something that affects that heart for that change, to where somebody will be honest and somebody will be open and somebody will be willing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's inside things. You can't make somebody have those things.
And we don't really know why it happened for us. So, I mean, we say gift of desperation. Like, we just one day, hopefully a higher power comes in and guides people to their recovery. And that's what happened to me. Is they just one day I was done, and I found the right things to help me. You know what I mean?
Why were you done? At what point? When you had your last drink or your last drug or whatever, what was that day like? Why was that day different than the day before?
So I had this story about this psychosis. So this is the thread of this psychosis. I was having that same psychosis even while drinking. When I didn't have my alcohol, after 5 years of drinking every day straight almost, hallucinating on the alcohol, hallucinating when I was off the alcohol, hallucinating with Xanax withdrawals, is like I was so out of my mind. I woke up the next day, I barely felt human. I couldn't read the words on the wall. I mean, I hit bottom. I hit a spiritual and emotional bottom. And then I said, I'm going to do anything to change. And that's the gift of desperation. Desperation is surrender and acceptance. Surrender is the big one. Surrender means I'm going to do anything it takes, you know? And that's when I met you. You were really ready to do whatever it takes. And that's the difference.
So what's the difference between surrender and concede?
Concede is a full concession. A full surrender means anything and everything I'll do. And surrender means like, I want to give it up, but I'm not fully ready. Concede is entirely ready.
Rodger, what was that day like for you? I wanted to ask you.
I remember that last day I used. When did I make up my mind? I knew a full week before I was coming out here, but something had clicked. I was in my ex-girlfriend's backyard, or I was in her house or something, and I was alone. And really, nobody wanted me around anymore. I wasn't out stealing, so the people who I used drugs with, I couldn't put anything into the game. All I was doing was just freeloading off people. Mm. And then just nobody wanted me around. That was the desperation, is that nobody wanted me. Nobody wanted me around. I'd be walking. I walked 8 miles one night, and this is where it clicked. I needed a ride home. I just wanted to go home. And it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't get a ride home. I walked 8 miles in a pair of cowboy boots because I just wanted to go home. Just wanted to go to sleep. And I couldn't find one person to drive me that 8 miles.
What was up with the boots?
Because I was, I'm a welder, so I'm wearing, work boots. Okay. And I walked 8 miles, had blisters. I had blisters on my entire feet, on both feet. And I was tired of that. I was just tired of being alone. I was tired of not having anything. I was tired of my friends not being real friends. I had one woman, I had my bondswoman who cared about me, Amanda Horton. She supported me, and she's awesome. She continues to support me, and it's weird. I have a bondswoman who is a great friend, but she is, and we talk all the time. And then Brandy, she made it possible. She paid for my premium. I had the money to pay for it, and I went and tricked it off, and she still paid for it to get me out here and push me to get there at that airport. Because I didn't care about me, but other people did. People wanted to see me succeed. People still believed in me, and I didn't see it. I didn't. I'm just now seeing it, Solomon. I'm just now feeling like people want me around.
I do want Rodger around, obviously. If I'm going to invite him as my first guest. I have a couple things to get to before we wrap up here. This one is how important it is that since I've been sober the last 7 years, addiction has gotten so much worse. This fentanyl thing, now it's like every day people are dying of fentanyl. That wasn't going on 7 years ago as much when I got sober. So this is Narcan, just to emphasize the importance of fentanyl is now killing people. It's in the meth. I've even heard it's in the Xanax now. I've heard people, they were like, oh, my friend just did some coke and they died on fentanyl. Narcan is, to help them stay away from, to save their life once they've already passed the point of about to overdose. So this could save someone's life. Try to track down Narcan.
Yeah, in Oklahoma, they got it. Some places you can get it out of a vending machine. That's how prevalent it is.
So it's not a prescription then?
No.
You can get over the counter.
It's just they've got it by the loads.
You're saying they get fentanyl out of the vending machine?
No, you can get the Narcan.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, because it's an epidemic.
191 people a day die in overdoses here in America off fentanyl. 191. So just think, that's a 747 full of people dying every day to fentanyl. Just think of a plane crash every day.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah. I've heard the 100,000 numbers. Over 150,000 people die a year of alcohol and drugs, at least. I think that's just drugs. Alcohol is probably another 100,000. But point is that now it's even increasing, and that's why I'm happy to just put my story out there, just for the hope that somebody's going to hear this, and put Rodger's story out there for the hope that someone's like, let me stay away from the fentanyl today, and there is a solution in recovery, in 12-step programs for all of our different vices, so I'm here to share the solution. There's some fear about putting my story out there or saying I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic, but generally I'm doing it because I have a desire to help others, and I hope that our story is helping others.
Yeah. Struggled with addiction my whole life. But today I don't want to use. Today I don't want to drink. And today people want me around. And when I come in here, I tested positive for fentanyl, and all I did was use meth and drink alcohol. Didn't use nothing else. No pills, no nothing. And I still tested positive for fentanyl. And that's scary. It's scary that I was putting my life that quick. I could have died. And I wasn't expecting it, or I wasn't looking for that. I was just looking to get high. If you're really struggling, there's 1,000 recovery centers that are easy to get into. And I've went through 2 of them here in Southern California. Whether you're struggling with mental illness or you're struggling with substance abuse, there are people that will help. 12-step programs, AA, NA, CA, every kind of A in the world. 12 steps is like a guidebook of the Bible to help you straighten your life out, to get back in contact. And I went through a sauna recovery, Costa Mesa, awesome people, great place. It's no Malibus, anything like that.
And I like to say that, as much as it's about the 12 steps, it's about finding a higher power. It's about some of these principles. This is acceptance. Is even if you could just stay sober in one day, just by accepting that you have a problem and saying okay, I'm just going to stay sober one day at a time. I'm going to get through the day. I'm going to go look for solutions, whatever they may be. And the real solutions are as simple as acceptance, faith, courage, wisdom,
Honesty,
willingness. Willingness is the main one. Is you got to be willing to now listen, be honest with yourself, surrendering. That's the acceptance of our addiction and alcoholism, is accepting that we have it and we need to do something about it.
Yeah, acceptance has been huge in my
That's
life.
why you got on the plane and came here.
Yeah.
And that's why I found myself in meetings.
I accepted, the thing is accepting that I have an addiction that's trying to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not doing something against that addiction, I'm doing something for that addiction. And I've accepted that. I've accepted that for years. And the reality of it is I don't want to die loaded. Life is so much better without it.
I can wrap that up by saying we're either moving towards recovery or we're moving towards relapse. So we know what relapse looks like. We know what recovery looks like. We're an example of recovery. I'm glad that we got to share this today. And I'm you're the best person I could think to talk about acceptance.
Well, I hope I did you justice, Brandon.
No, you definitely did. Just your story alone, people can hear it and relate to it, and we'll share it around. I'll be talking about it. I don't know if I'll be talking about addiction and acceptance weekly, but I will be talking. Next week's topic is authenticity and bravery. So we're still on the spiritual path, talking about things that help me stay sober, whether I'm talking about my sobriety or not. And then, I like to have fun here. I'm going to have comedians and musicians on, but the point of it all is these are the opposite of addiction, and I'm staying sober. I'm a sober man. I've learned how to stay sober. This is how I do it.
Those the authenticity and bravery, those are synonyms for those would be honesty and courage, man.
Mm-hmm.
And both those are huge in acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Being honest with yourself, and courage, knowing the difference between, what to do and what not to do. It's huge.
Yeah. So we'll wrap up now. Tune in next week for my friend Lewis is going to join us. We're going to talk about authenticity and bravery. We're going to talk about how to become our authentic selves. And I'm going to post this up on YouTube, iTunes. I got my Instagram, Brandon K Show. I got my TikTok, Brandon K Show. We got Rodger. You can plug your Instagram.
I'm good on my Instagram, but if you need help,
It's down there.
Sauna Recovery, Costa Mesa.
There you go. And obviously, whatever 12-step program you find, those are where I find community. That's where I find my solution. Without breaking my anonymity, I'm in different 12-step programs.
Or?
And that's how we kind of share about it. We try to stay anonymous, but that's what I found that's helpful, and try to share about it in a general way to the best of my ability. So thank you for joining us.